Amon holds his arm out as they reach the front of the laboratory. Jade, still pondering over the embarrassing comment she'd made earlier, doesn't notice, and her forehead collides with his sleeved forearm. She places a hand to her forehead, looking up to him curiously. He tilts his head to her with a brow raised, wondering if all humans lacked an attention span. He sighs softly, pulling her ID from her purse. He pushes the bag into Jade's hands.
Wait here.
He's moving inside the building in a blink of an eye, leaving Jade confused and unsure of what exactly he was planning. The ID badge would get him through the front door, but there was no way he'd get past security, especially with a badge that wasn't his own.
Shit, you idiot.
She curses herself aloud for not stopping him. He was going to get her fired for sure. She kicks at a few pebbles in anger. He caught her off guard every step of the way.
Distracting, teasing, stupid, tormenting demon,
she says as she kicks each stone. Why couldn't she keep herself together around him? What the hell did he think he was doing here anyway? Inside the lab, Amon waves a hand past the security guard in the lobby, entrancing him, causing the guard to assume Amon worked here. He questions the guard for information on the bus of the building and quickly makes his way to the office of Dr. Foster. Upon entering the man's office, Amon finds himself face to face with a chubby little pink-bald man. Foster quickly turns a darker pink when he realizes Amon does not belong in his facility.
Who the hell?
The man starts to yell, but Amon waves his hand, freezing Dr. Foster in place.
I work here, and you will give me clearance now.
Dr. Foster nods, captured in a trance-like state by Amon. He clicks a few buttons on his computer, and a moment later, the clearance badge is printing from the machine in the corner of the office. Amon smiles a cold, thin smile, his eyes burrow into Dr. Foster's mind.
While you're at it, I want you to forget any suspicion you have of an employee here named Jade.
Amon's words crawl from his lips, like a snake slithering towards an innocent mouse. Venom on his fangs and ready to strike the second he is displeased. Dr. Foster feels a cold chill run through his being and swallows, nodding to Amon's demands. Without another word, Amon turns on his heel, making his way back out to Jade. Jade is startled when Amon's voice chimes out. She flinches, dropping her coffee as she does. There's a flash of black mist around her, and the cup was suddenly hovering in her face. No, not hovering. She looked up to see Amon holding it from the top. She blinked away her confusion, slowly taking the cup from Amon.
Thanks,
she says softly, her mind spinning with questions she could not formulate the words to say. Amon winks at her.
Sure thing, kitten.
Jade shudders. Great, now there's a pet name as well as winking. She thinks as she eyes him warily. Amon spins away from her before she has time to question him, pausing at the door and looking back to her.
Are you just going to stand there with that stupid expression all day?
Jade huffs, scowling at him as she approaches the front door, but he only motions for her to enter the building, offering no answers as he does so.
Where's your office?
He questions her as he follows her inside. Jade spins to face him, a burning question on her lips.
Wait a minute. How did you get in?
He smiles and taps his pointer finger to his temple.
Think about it, kitten.
Jade's eyes go wide and she holds a hand to her mouth.
Did you murder everyone in the building?
Amon laughs loudly but quickly realizes she isn't joking.
Seriously? No. What fun would that be? Your mind must be full of funny thoughts like that. No wonder your reaction to a shadow demon being in your house is, let's be friends.
Amon laughs, making air quotes as he speaks. Jade huffs again, frustrated but slightly relieved he hadn't killed anyone. However, he still hadn't answered her question. She starts to head towards her laboratory, attempting to understand Amon along the way.
Are you some kind of taunting demon? Is that even a thing? I mean, demons all have different abilities, right?
She questions as they enter her lab room. He places his hand on his chin as if in deep thought.
The taunting demon. I kind of like how that sounds.
Amon smiles at her coyly, but Jade rolls her eyes, no longer caring about the conversation. He obviously was never going to give her a straight answer, and since he hadn't killed anyone, what difference did it matter how he got him? Jade drops her bag in silent defeat on one of the lab tables, letting her body fall into one of the empty lab stools.
I'll come now. I'm only teasing. It's kind of what demons do, you know.
He says. His words sounded as if he was begging her to respond to him, but she still ignores him.
All right. I can see you no longer wish to play this little game of ours.
He straightens, folding his arms across his chest, his bemused expression fading.
I used a mind trick.
He says flatly, lowering to study Jade's face now with a much more serious tone to his words.
Happy? Now, where's this box?
Jade looks up to him, ready to scold him, but his eyes freeze her anger before it has a chance to completely ignite. He seemed to be scrutinizing her, almost accusing her of keeping a secret from him. Jade takes a moment to collect herself before slowly explaining in full detail the events that occurred the night before.
When I finally came out of the bathroom, everything was cleaned up and the guys were gone. And well, you know the rest.
She watches him on as she finishes her story. He no longer made her feel as if he suspected her of being guilty of something, but he did appear to be satisfied by her words. He had nodded along with her story in understanding, but he hadn't gotten the answer he had hoped for. She could feel his disappointment and hangs her head solemnly.
Sorry, I don't know where your friend is.
He raises a brow at her statement.
What makes you think he is my friend?
She looks back to him, now feeling a bit uncertain. Had she been wrong to assume he was curious of the man in the box because they were friends?
Why else would you be so interested in the man from the box? Unless he's an enemy.
Jade tilts her head as she says this, genuinely curious as to why he was looking for that strange naked man. Her face flushes at the thought, and she quickly lowers her gaze to the floor, catching Amon's attention.
You're not wrong, but you're not exactly right either.
He says flatly.
Why exactly are you changing color again?
He questions, but it didn't sound like he was asking her. More like he was speaking his thought aloud. She shrugs, not wanting to explain the awkward encounter to him. Amon remains silent for a moment too long, and Jade's eyes trail back up to him. He seemed to be staring off behind her, lost in thought.
In any case, you are sure you don't know where that man has got off to?
He questions her blankly. Jade nods silently. Who knew disappointing a demon would feel so bad?
Behind you.
A voice suddenly whispers in her ear in a sing-song way, causing Jade to jump and almost fall off the stool. Something catches the back of her shirt, holding her in place, and she turns her head to be face to face with the blonde man that crawled from the box the night before. Her eyes go wide as the man releases his grasp, and Jade jumps to her feet, pointing at him.
You! How did you get back in here?
She exclaims. The man smiles brightly, giving her a small wave.
What do you mean back in here? I never left.
The strange blue-eyed man replies. Jade looks between the two men in confusion. Did Amon already know he would be here? Why had he questioned her so forcefully if he already knew where this man was? The stranger takes a slow bow towards Amon, appearing to be about to say something as he rises, but Amon shakes his head as if signaling for him to remain silent. Jade's eyes squint, tilting her head curiously at the interaction. What exactly are they hiding? She wonders.
Jade, meet Zeth. He is.
He pauses, searching for his words.
His assistant.
Zeth finishes the sentence for him, taking another half bow.
Assistant? Demons have assistants.
She questions the two of them. Zeth's eyes dart to Amon quickly. Jade notes the hesitation of his actions. Something was off here. Jade could feel it in her bones.
Of course, kitten. Remember what I told you, though. Be careful what you ask, or you may not like the answer you receive.
Amon responds in a playful tone that infuriates her.
Can you give me a straight answer to anything?
Zeth's eyes go wide as she spits out her words. How dare this mortal speak to Amon so disrespectfully? But before he can voice his anger, Amon interrupts his thoughts.
Don't mind my little friend here. She means no harm, though she may not understand whom exactly she may offend.
Zeth nods as if suddenly everything had become crystal clear to him. But Jade can only stare at the pair, perplexed.
We've a few matters to discuss privately.
Amon says. His eyes fall to Jade as he waits for her mind to catch up with the situation. Her jaw still hung slightly ajar as she looked between them, clearly not understanding what was going on at all.
Is she yours?
Zeth questions, causing Jade's heart to quicken and her face blushes slightly. What was that supposed to mean? She didn't belong to anyone. Amon responds before she has a chance to say anything.
No, but in a way, yes.
To this, Zeth tilts his head curiously. His eyes slide over Jade from head to toe.
Then.
All in good time, Zeth.
Amon responds to a question that made no sense to Jade. She straightens, her anger clearing her confusion, and she is finally able to speak.
Who are you exactly, and why are you still in my lab? And you?
Her eyes fall upon Amon with rage.
Why can't you tell me what is going on here? This is my lab and I demand answers. Also,
she looks back to Zeth with a narrow gaze.
I do not belong to anyone.
The room falls into a heavy silence. Zeth stares wide-eyed at Amon, who rests a cold stare on Jade. She studies them both, waiting for an explanation, though it was slowly dawning on her that she may have crossed a line.
Amon, please. You at least owe me some kind of explanation. I mean, you could have told me you knew this. This thing, when I told you what happened last night.
She points to Zeth as she speaks, her words becoming more quiet and shaky as she finishes. She swallows her nerves when Amon continues to stare at her silently.
Did I say something wrong?
She finally manages to ask as she drops her gaze to the floor. She hears Amon let out a long sigh. He was going to tell her anything. She'd just have to accept that no matter how frustrating it may be. Maybe he was right. Maybe it wasn't an answer she wanted to know.
There is nothing inherently wrong with being curious. However, mind your tongue when you speak to those you are unfamiliar with.
His words were sharp and cut her into tiny pieces. She felt herself shrink away, rubbing at her arm uncomfortably. She nods.
I just want to understand what's going on is all.
She mumbles quietly.
It is my job, after all.
She looks back to Amon apologetically. She hadn't meant to bark orders at him, but she had spent a long time as a researcher. Solving the unsolvable was something she was very good at. Coming across an instance she could not find an answer to was upsetting. Amon's eyes soften slightly and a small smile crosses his lips.
I understand, but are you certain you want all of the answers?
Jade's mind flashes back to the previous night, when he had shown her his demon form. If there was an even greater secret here, she was certainly curious, but maybe giving her mind time to come to terms with what she already knew was a good idea.
I still want to know, but maybe after work, assuming I'm not dead by then, anyway.
Jade turns away from the two men as she says this last statement. She still needed to approach her boss to see if he suspected her of releasing Zeth. If she was killed over it, then it wouldn't matter anymore what she knew or didn't know.
What do you mean if you aren't dead? Who's going to kill you?
Zeth perks up to her words. Jade lets her shoulders fall.
That's what I'm trying to figure out. Those agents came to get that crate last night while I was still here, but you were gone. It sounded like they were really mad, and if they know...
Her words fall silent, and Amon continues for her.
She works here, Zeth, and although she interfered with things last night, to the humans in this facility, it was a big no-no. They could very well kill her over it.
Zeth rolls his eyes as if it was nothing to fret over.
Is that all?
He questions. Jade looks back to him, her eyes wide in fear.
Being killed is something I don't want, Zeth. My life is a big deal to me, okay?
He shrugs, looking to Amon.
You say that as though you believe me incapable of handling that situation.
Amon says calmly, a sneaky little smile playing across his lips. She can't help but wonder at his words. Why did that sound so familiar? Amon motions to the door.
Anyway, if you don't mind, we do have some rather pressing matters to attend to.
Zeth nods as he heads for the door, but Jade can only watch in defeat, having to accept Amon's deferment of her questions and lack of answers. She struggles with the information she already knew, her tired mind searching for explanations to Amon's words. How had she missed Seth last night? He was definitely gone when she exited the bathroom. And what did Amon mean about handling the situation? Why had he gotten so mad at her for demanding answers?
Just focus on your work for now. I'll explain what I can later. Oh, when will you be done, by the way?
Amon questions her, a softer tone in his words now. She shrugs, looking towards her office. All she really had to do today was take the files to the local museum. Her boss had given her a few days off to recover from last night's incident. She'd only come in today to avoid requesting Amon to leave her apartment, although now she wished they never came here.
Actually, I really don't have much to do. I don't imagine it will take more than an hour or so.
Her eyes meet his and she smiles gently.
I might go home and get some more sleep though.
Jade chuckles softly. For some reason, admitting she was still tired made her feel weak in Amon's presence. He returns a patient smile, though, soothing her discomfort.
I see. Well, you do what needs to be done and we will come back in an hour to walk you home then. After all, can't have you sleepwalking your way home.
She detected a hint of sarcasm in his words, but they also made her heartbeat quicken. Why was he acting as though he was going to protect her? She sighs. It was another of many questions she'd have to wait for an answer to. Amon takes his leave after she quietly nods to his words. The sudden silence feels vast after spending the last few hours with Amon. She was never going to get used to a demon winking at her, or teasing her, or being nice to her. Her mind races. He's definitely weird. Jade pulls out the files for the museum and attempts to review them, but finds she can't focus with all the other information swimming around her mind. She looks to the face clock. It was already noon. The museum was open and Luke would be waiting for her. She'd forgotten to tell him about last night, and he'd probably be upset that she was now late. Jade rustles her hair in frustration. She had reviewed the files 5 times this week and was sure she had everything together. She put the files in a brief and decided to check in with the boss before heading over to the museum. As she leaves her lab, she notices personnel running in and out of the port room. This is the room where they dissect bodies, and her curiosity gets the better of her. She watches for a moment as a large wooden box is carried into the port room. 2 armed guards stand at the ready on either side of the entrance, and all other personnel are excused. Jade sees her boss speaking with the guards and decides to try to get some information.